Hey guys, welcome to my Samoan language instruction on until and since. Here is some vocabulary words for you and get those work done. Okay, the first thing we're going to be talking about today is until. And you've seen this deferential marker SETI before. And when you saw it before earlier in the course, it was used in a command. It was used in a softer tone command, almost like you're waiting for their approval. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding a meaning to that SETI. It's going to have a second meaning, and you'll note here that it has an alternative form, SETIA, and you'll only see SETIA in the usage of until. Okay, so this is the perfective form of SETI in the until sense. Okay, so in this video we're not talking about the command SETI, we're talking about until. And you can use one or the other, SETI or SETIA, depending on the context. And if you're having a hard time distinguishing when to use SETI or SETIA, then you need to go back to my perfective versus imperfective verbs. Okay, so the next thing that you need to know is that what we're talking about is until, obviously, that SETI and SETIA mean until, and that in the clause that the SETI is contained, I don't need a tense marker. Okay. So this is kind of similar to when you use a command. If I said SETI and then I said a command, I don't usually have a tense marker in that clause, whereas you just carry that same knowledge that you used with the SETI as a command, a deferential marker to a command. You just take that knowledge of don't using a tense marker with SETI. It's just you don't use it in the same clause that the SETI is in. Okay. So, moving on to an example, we have wait, and I would just say that the same way that I would say it in English. It's fa'atali, and then the thing that we're talking about is until. And so I would say SETI because I'm using the imperfective form. And then the next thing that you need to notice is if I say wait, blah, 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 until something is over, then we usually have a space in between these two words in English. See all this? I have all these words right here in between until and over. Well, in Samoan, I don't do that. I just combine those two. So if I'm ever going to say until something is over, then I just combine those two things at the beginning. Okay? So that's something that you need to make a mental note of. The next thing that we need to know is then you just end it off with the remainder of the sentence is the game. So the game. So this, and I'm just going to throw in the is over. So this way ... is over is the same thing as SETI UMA. You just need to burn that into your memory. That until ... is over is the same thing as SETI UMA. Okay? And then we just finish off with the thing that we're waiting for, and that's the game. Alright, so moving on to our next example is I'm not going until 9, so you should be able to say this sentence right here with just the normal sentence structure usage that you've learned to this point. So that I would say otele alu in that point, and then the next thing is what we're working on is until. And at this point I'm using the perfective form, and again if you need to know why I'm using that, then you need to go back to that perfective video. So SETIA and then 9, this is kind of one of those weird things in Samoan that I'm going to have to tell you. Just trust me for now. I am going to make a clock talk video here in the future. But this right here, this thing that I circled on the right, that means ta leiva, that struck the 9. And for now I'm just asking you to just know that when I'm talking about time, they say until 9 struck, or something similar to that effect. When I get to that video, then if you're still having trouble with it, then I'll explain it more thoroughly. But that's just the way that I would say 9. You'll note that this is 9, but the other part, the ta, is just struck the 9. Moving on, we can also add an oo on to the end of SETI. So it'd sound like SETI oo, and that just means what these blue words are, to come or to arrive. And you'll see that a lot more often than you might in English. So these particles may precede an adjective of time, such as anane or tayao. So anane, that was earlier, and tayao was later. Okay? And so a lot of times you'll see it with one of those adjectives of time. And then the next thing is just know that you'll see this a lot of times, this se'i o'o, just to mean to come or to came to pass or something similar to that, like it arrived at this moment. That's the way that I would say that in Samoan is se'i o'o. And so I work until later. You should be able to say this. I work is o te whaingaluenga. And then the until, I'm using the se'i o'o. And then later, because I'm using an adjective of time, is nane. And again, you don't have to say se'i o'o nane, but that's probably the more preferred and grammatically correct way to say until later. Then moving on to another example, the children stay awake until 9. You should be able to say this, the children stay awake. Just remember that this is multiple amount of people staying awake, and I need to pluralize the verb that is taking place. So, a feala. So, this fe right here is the plural way to say multiple people are awake. And if it was just one child, then I would just say this ala right there. So, a feala to mighty, that you should be able to say that. The children stay awake. And then the thing that we're working on is until, and I'm using se'i o'o again because I'm using an adjective of time, and that is what I normally use in adjectives of time. A se'i o'o I leiva. Okay, so se'i o'o I leiva to the 9. And again, if that's confusing you between ta leiva and I leiva, again, I'll talk to you more about that in my clock talk video that I'm planning on making in the future. I want you to go over these next two these next two sentences right here and ask yourself, why did I translate it the way I did? I would ask that you just take these sentences and try to translate them without looking at these. And you can kind of consider those your practice sentences, your early practice sentences. And I'm also doing that because of time. When following by ina, okay, so I can say se'i o'o, and sorry about that pause. I noticed a grammatical error and I needed to fix it. So, but in this case, you'll see that when it's followed by ina, the same expression may also introduce clauses with no tense marker. And I just want you to know that this part right here, adding in the ina, is a little bit difficult, and it's even harder for me to wrap my mind around it. Okay, so we did have a video that we just talked about ina, and a lot of times that ina can mean in order to, or so that, or even just the word to itself. And so in this example that I give you, it might seem a little strange. I'm just giving it to you because you are going to come across it in Samoan, and I want you to start recognizing it sooner rather than later. But just so you know, if you don't add an ina in this clause or this sentence, they will understand you perfectly. It'll be fine. It's just, again, I want you to see it now rather than later. So again, we're going to say the boy studied until his family came. So you should be able to say that with your normal sentence structure abilities. So sa awa olitama. And then we're going to until, and his family came. So this is kind of a time expression, an adjective of time. So I can say se'iya o'o ina. And again, if I don't add that ina right there, they will totally understand what I am saying. And it's kind of one of those things where it's a little unclear to me why they do throw that ina. Because you could say, in order so that his family came. You wouldn't really say that in English, but you'll see that in Samoan sometimes, okay? So we'll do that, and then his family came. So we needed to use our same sentence structure abilities, and it would be came his family is the way that you would say that in Samoan. So, o mai lona ainga. Awesome, so moving on to the last section in our until part, is in certain contexts, se'i and se'iya partake somewhat in the meaning wait until. So these two expressions, these two words can mean this expression wait until. And when you use it in this case, again, there is no no additional clause is required. It's kind of you're just stating a fact, or almost giving a command in a way. So this is where you will see seti at the beginning, implying until, kind of like the deferential marker where you're doing a command. It's not always going to be in the command form, but it is kind of throwing in until and the deferential marker all into one. So it is almost like a deferential, softer command, if you will. So get rid of those. Wait until, I would just say seti. And then I have a done in this sentence, so I would say seti uma, all as one. And then I would finish off the rest of that sentence. Her work would be lana ngalawinga. All right, moving on. Wait until the father comes. This is a singular person coming, so it'd be seti sao and then letama. Or sorry, the letama, the father. The father would be father. All right. Moving on, wait until it's 6 o'clock. So I would say wait, and that would be seti, and then 6 o'clock. The way that I would say that in Samoan is ta leono. All right, so that is our wait. If anything's confusing you, I would again recommend going back and rewatching and getting those things that you didn't pick out before. Here's some practice sentences. So if you're really understanding the concepts, then you'll be able to translate this. And I threw in an ina in there on the Samoan side because I want you to be able to recognize it when it comes, but you don't have to be perfect at it just now. You'll start to use that more and more the more you hear it and come across that. So translate these sentences, and here are the answers. So I hope you really did translate those sentences, and that's the way that you learn. You make it harder for yourself by actually doing the work, and that real learning will come because of that. Okay, moving on to since. The word since, that was an awkward line, is conveyed in Samoan with the word talu. Okay, and sometimes you can end this talu with an ona. And I want you to almost think of it as being an auxiliary verb in a way, because you throw an ona on with it. And when I have this combination, you don't need a tense marker in that part of the sentence either. Okay, so let's just look at some examples. We have been sad, so you should be able to say that with your normal sentence structure. So, wafa'anoa noa mato. Okay, sad or we almost is the way that it's saying. And then the thing that we're talking about is since, and so you'd say talu ona, and that's just me telling you that. You need some examples to really grasp this. And then you left would be you left, and it's a aluese. Or if you wanted to, you could say aluese oe. Either way, it works. So there's one example for you. And then the next is since the storekeeper died. So we're using the since at the beginning, okay? And I'm just telling you, in normal usage, when you say since, you would use a talu ona and then a verb of some sort. So notice in this case, we had a verb that comes next, just like we're going to have a verb come right after this. And again, we don't need a tense marker in that part of the clause. So in this part of the clause up above, I did need a tense marker. I used my normal tense sentence structure. But when I got to the next part of the sentence structure, there's no tense marker needed in that part of the sentence or that clause. Same with this. I have a talu ona, and in this clause of the sentence or this part of the sentence, I'm not going to need a tense marker. The talu ona takes place of that. But I will use my verb that comes next, and then I'll do my subject that comes right after it, almost like it's a normal sentence structure, the storekeeper. So talu ona oti, so it's almost like tense marker verb, but since is taking the place of your tense marker. So it's since, verb, subject. Okay, that's the way that you should think of it. The same with here, but we did it the other way. We did since subject, because I'm using a descriptive pronoun, and then my verb. Okay, so moving on, we have that part of the sentence talked about, and then in this next part we will need a tense marker. So that's why I have an A right here. So we haven't gotten any gasoline. We haven't gotten any gasoline. You should be able to say that. E le'i maua mato se penisini. And the only part that you should be wondering about is this. This say right here is a marker of an amount, and we haven't gotten to that point in the course. I just don't worry about that too much. We will get to that later. Okay, moving on. Talu may precede time expressions and sometimes appear as talu mai. So when I'm using a time expression, talu mai is one of those hints of, oh, it is in a time setting, or you're talking about time. So he hasn't been happy. We should be able to say that. And that would be e le fia fia o ia. Then we would say since, which is talu. And then yesterday, this is an example of time. So I would say talu mai because it's in a time setting. And then yesterday. All right, moving on, we have he was sick. So again, you should be able to do that on your own. And then since, we have what we're talking about. And then last week, that is a time expression. So I would say talu mai again. So this would be talu mai. And then last week. So the way that I say that in Samoan is, and I'm going to break this up. So the week, ua te'a. This is a tense marker right here. Ua te'a is that past or in the past. So it is a little bit of a tricky way to say it. You don't say last week, you say the week that was past. And the way that you say that is with the ua te'a. All right, moving on to our next example sentence. He has stayed in the house since yesterday, so you should be able to say he has stayed in the house with the normal tense or sentence structure, and that is na ia nofui le fale. And then we have since Tuesday, so that's talu mai, and then you just say Tuesday, which is le aso lua. All right, moving on. So if you have any questions with this, again, rewind and try to form these sentences on your own if you're having a trouble, and see what's the difference between mine and yours. Moving on, so since is a little bit more, it has a little bit more parts than until did. So just be patient with me. As with the English word since, okay, this right here, talu may convey the meaning of because or on account of. In these instances, it usually is followed by the particle I, okay? So if I have, a lot of times in English, we'll say since as meaning because or on account of. So it's almost another meaning of the word. We can say since, like the since that we've been talking about already in the video. It's like since yesterday, or we were sick since the boy left town. It's almost describing a time. But there's also another usage of this in English where we can say since means because or on account of. And you can do the same thing in Samoan. It usually follows the particle I. So the particle I follows this talu when I mean since in a because kind of way. So it's almost like throwing on another because in your Samoan repertoire. It's not just awa or ona or the other ones. Okay, so I'm sick, and I'm just trying to make a point right here. I could say because right here, but I could also say since. So I could also put in that underlined portion. I could say since, and so because since and because almost mean the same thing sometimes. I'm just trying to really emphasize that I can use this additional usage of since. So I'm sick, you should be able to say that. You could say o te ma'i or ua o ma'i. I need to add that on there. And then because, I'm saying because, but we're really talking about since meaning because. And because I'm using this talo I, it almost means like it's because. It's like an additional because. Or it's the sense that means because. I've said that a million times. I'm just really trying to hopefully explain that well. My beer drinking. So my beer drinking would be, and I'm going to distinguish between that. So my beer drinking would be inu pia. So there's that. Moving on to the next sentence, we have the girl is conceited because, and again, I'm just using that because it's the sense meaning because. So you should be able to say the girl is conceited, and that's e mamita letene. And then I'm using since meaning because, so I say taluai, and then her intelligence is what follows, lona poto. All right, moving on to the next form. Taluai can also be combined with ona. So if I said taluai, I could also say ona coming right after it to introduce complete sentences. So independent clauses that can contain the combination taluai usually only use the tense markers a, te, or ua. So if I need to make another complete sentence, then I throw on this ona. And again, this sounds wordy, but I'm hoping that the example sentences will kind of clear up any doubts or questions you might have. So the boy was injured. You should be able to say that. Sa lavea letama, on account of, and this is just, I'm just using the since in this form, kind of like because. So it's since, I'm saying the boy was injured since, but it's almost meaning on account of, okay? And the way that I would say that is taluai. I'm really saying since, but it's the since meaning on account of, and then his foolishness is the thing that precedes, and then lona valea. So we didn't have to throw on an ona in this case, okay? It was, this sentence right here was exactly the same as these other two that I was talking about. But in the other two cases, you will see the ona, and I want you to, for now, try to think of why I need the ona in these other two cases. I can't speak Samoan since I'm shy. Okay, so I can't speak Samoan. Ele mawhai ona o tautala fa'a Samoa. And then since, which would be talo I, ona, and then I'm shy, which would be right here. Sorry, I need my blue pen. I'm shy. And then o ma. Okay, so what is the difference between this sentence that I just went over, okay, and the one that I'm using now? Well, the difference is you're introducing another sentence structure almost. You're using this ma right here, which is acting as a predicate. Okay, this predicate right here is introducing, you need to add on another sentence. You need to have another independent clause. And so I throw in this ona right here. So this is making it a complete, almost a conjunction, where I have the yellow part, and then I have the conjunction, and then I have a second independent phrase. Okay, so o ma, I could say o ma, if that's not making sense, I could say this right here, o ma, I'm shy, or o te ma, but in this case we don't need the tense marker because of the talu, but I could say o te ma or o ma independently, and it would stand on its own. But if I said something from these sentences from above, I couldn't say lona valea by itself. I couldn't say his foolishness, and it wouldn't be a complete idea. I could, like, if someone was asking me a question, his foolishness, that's not a complete thought. You would be, because of his foolishness would be more of a complete thought, but it still couldn't stand on its own, whereas o or ote ma could. That's the difference between the two. So I hope that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, then go back, rewind, and get a second explanation. The lady is lying down. I need my highlighter, sorry. The lady is lying down. You should be able to say that. O lo utauto le tamaiti. And then since is taluai, and because it's in a because meaning. And then she isn't well, or she isn't strong. And I could say that on its own. She isn't strong, or she isn't well. And that's ona ua le malosi. So let me kind of throw that on there. This ona right here is combined with the taluai, and then I would do ua le malosi. That blue part, ua le malosi, or ua nate le malo si. One of those, she is not strong, could stand on its own. That is the difference between the first three examples being these two and this one right here, between the last two. So again, that's a little bit complicated. Again, if you don't throw on this ona right here, and I mean, I've done this plenty of times where I haven't thrown an ona on where I should have, they will understand you perfectly, so I don't want you to stress about that too much. Okay, it is complex, but when you do see it, just know that's the difference. One is, distinguishing that the second part of the sentence, the second clause, if you will, could stand on its own as an independent clause. Okay, moving on, here's some practice sentences. Again, I would encourage you to pause the video, translate these, and if you get them right, great. If not, then you can figure out some things that aren't making sense. That's where the real learning takes place, is you trying this on your own, catching mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Don't be ashamed of that. Don't be about making mistakes. Make those mistakes. You need to make those mistakes and then refer back to the material on your own and try to figure out how or why it wasn't that way. Here's the answers, and again, I hope you were able to enjoy this video and able to learn something. Until next time, guys, tofa soifua.